Hello and welcome back to the boat shed. More destruction inside the boat today. Let's get right to work. Now, just in case you are new here, my name is John and this boat here is Antidote. She's a 1989 Liberty 458. We're doing a pretty full restoration here up on the driveway. Now, the last time that you were here, we were working on hollowing out that last section of bulwarks and made a somewhat unfortunate discovery that it seems that the entire transom of this boat is saturated with water. It's probably plywood and it's gone. So to tackle all of this rotten core material, we're going to try to tackle that from the interior of the boat. Before I take you inside to show you what's going to happen there, let's take a look first at the transom and see what might be involved on the outside of the boat. Well, on the transom of the boat, we're greeted with a whole host of different pieces of hardware for different things. Now, all of these are either screwed through the hull all the way and like bolted, or they potentially are just screwed into the wood core. Like I suspect that's the case probably for these window trim rings. So all three of these stainless trim rings will come off. We're gonna have to get all the glazing out. The boarding ladder here, this last rung of the ladder, looks like it's fastened through with some Phillips head bolts. This piece here holds the ladder, the fold-up ladder is on this guy, and then moving down we have the exhaust, the wet exhaust outlet. And actually only one side of this is used, so the other one might become an outlet for like a high capacity bilge or something like that in the future. Now, we do also still have these pieces of wood teak trim. That's kind of how I discovered we had this issue in the first place. While I was hollowing out the bulwarks, my chainsaw hit a bolt, and it would be one of these screws that are covered here going all the way through into that wood core. So I believe we'll have to remove that. There's a whole host of wood bungs that will have to get drilled out and removed. Now, all of this will help with the painting process eventually anyway. We're gonna wanna get this all cleaned off anyhow to do the paint, so it's not really a lot of time lost there, but it is gonna be some work here. Now, there is some evidence probably of water in there. Potentially, we definitely have some rust streaks here and there coming down. But one thing I don't see is any cracking, which would be, an obvious indicator that the cord construction has really broken down and it is not supporting enough weight. So it's obviously enough for the boarding ladder and things. The last thing I noticed here that I want to mention is I do see some screw heads that have been sort of stripped out. The stainless fasteners are a little softer than some of the other steel op rings, but you gotta have stainless. And of course we have the good folks at Bolt Depot on our side here, so they're gonna send us all new fasteners to get these refreshed, and that's something that I like to do anyway. Is it completely necessary to do this repair here? Maybe not, but I do wanna mount a hydro vane on the stern here. So that's a self-steering wind device. It's an amazing contraption, and that's gonna put a lot of load through the transom of the boat, because it acts as an emergency backup rudder. It's also just used to steer the boat during all kinds of other conditions. They're really great for doing long passages. So I do want to get this put back into good shape. Plus, if you've been watching my videos, you'll know that I don't like to leave things alone. So we're gonna go after this. I'm actually really excited to get started on this today. I've kind of been thinking about it for the past few days. So let's go inside now and take a look at what the plan is in there. Now, similar to the approach that we took in the forward stateroom when we were looking to dig out that chain plate, I'm going to try to remove anything that I can in here with an intent to reuse it. So I'm going to try to be very gentle and hope that I can get things back looking more or less like I wasn't ever in here. Now, admittedly, I haven't put anything back together in the forward stateroom, so whether I can get it back looking original or completely butchered is really yet to be determined. I think we'll be okay, but I'm sure that I have my doubters out there, and if you are one of them, well, stick around. I hope that you'll keep watching. So right away, again, I know this is going to be an order of operations routine where probably this piece will want to come down first, these little trims, the window trims should come off, this guy, and then we're going to start trying to gently pry off these teak battens, which again I learned are called sealing in one of the previous videos, which I still think is a crazy word for something that goes on the side and not on the top of the boat, but I'm going to let that go. Getting these little triangular panels off or opened up a bit might be a little more difficult. We'll see. One thing I might start with is actually opening up the floor here first Under the plate we find the raw water exhaust outlet, and then you can see this side is just capped. It's not used yet. I would have imagined that this part is through bolted, but I actually don't feel any hardware on the inside, so I think it's just screwed into the core. Well, let's find out. We'll get these hoses off and we'll try and remove that piece. We'll start there. Maybe we'll be able to see if the core is exposed in there and we can determine if it's plywood or balsa, and we'll probably have a pretty quick indication of what kind of shape it's in. So we'll go with that. It's nice to see top quality band clamps here on this part. Now I'm still not sure why they didn't put these on the old shaft log. That seems like a good place to have them. Can't seem to get the pipe off here, so I think we need a bigger wrench. Let's take a second to thank some of the new Patreon and YouTube members that help keep this channel floating along. And if you're interested in some extra updates and ad-free videos, you can check out the Patreon link below or hit that join button. Now, the folks whose names are appearing on the screen go the extra mile to keep this channel working, and I couldn't do it without you. Thank you all so much. Now, back to the video. Huzzah! One of them is free, and you can see there's some salt around the edges there. So it's been leaking a little bit, but you know, we'll fix that before we get the new one in. Let's try and get the main exhaust outlet off now. Again, these look like pretty nice quality band clamps. Here I'm using one of our engine hose remover tools, and these are just really nice for getting in around a rubber part and loosening it up. But I'm actually using it here to get the band clamp out that's sort of molded into the rubber outer jacket of this hose. So with those out of the way, we can start trying to get this part out. Reluctantly, the strap wrench does break it free, but it's really hard for me to push this back. This is about a 15 to 20 foot long hose here that goes all the way into the engine room. But I did find that by going to about the midway point here, this access hatch, I was able to pull the whole thing back a little bit, get a bit of slack, and we do break it free. So now we can definitely see that there is in fact no fastener coming all the way through. So I think we'll break those screws off on the other side and this part will come out. There is some mild rust on it, more so on the non-used side, which I think is interesting, but it does look like they used some sort of black adhesive on the exhaust side, and maybe that helped to keep the water from getting in and starting to corrode the part. But we'll see if we can clean it up and reuse some of it. I think it'll work. Let's get going. These were not screws, they were machine threads. So it's possible that there's either a backing plate in here that's threaded, or these were just driven into plywood core with some adhesive, and we kind of hoped for the best. But it's definitely glued on. It's not just gonna come right off. So we'll try and free that up now with a bit of heat and some putty knives maybe. After scraping off some of the adhesive, it looks like we have, just from eyeball, a little over 3/8 of an inch probably of solid glass, then 1/2 inch ply, and then another inner skin that looks like maybe about 1/8. And yes, it's definitely all wet. I'm not sure what kind of shape it's in. It's wet. So I'm still really thinking I want to get in there and replace it since I'm already here this far in. I don't know, there's probably some naysayers out there. Let me know what you think I should do in the comments, but we're gonna keep on going here. Welcome back. It is another beautiful day here at the boat shed, and it's the next day. And now we've been working on removing all of that hardware. So I started by taking all of the screws out that fasten those stainless steel window trim rings in. And they all came out very easily, but the trim rings seem to be stuck into place very strongly with the adhesive, probably 5200. And I'm content to leave them where they are for now. Now there is a small crack in this piece, so we'll just be very careful if we get around to removing these at some point. So leaving those alone for now, we're moving on to the teak trim. And again, I have to uncover all of the bungs here, pull those out and expose the screws. And I've showed you this before, so we're gonna kind of just skip ahead here a little bit, but I was able to remove all of these except for a few. And I was hoping to leave the teak trim as well stuck on, but this one corner seems to be coming up. So we might just peel this whole part off later, we'll see. So all of these screws came out without much hassle. You even see here, this is the one that I hit with the chainsaw, and so it came out without much fight. And there is some scarring on it, so obviously I would have had to cut through all of these had I have continued to go from the top. And now this corner of the teak trim does appear to be a bit rotten. So teak is really great wood in the marine world. It's like pretty much the only thing that will survive, but it can still rot, which is interesting because a lot of people like to let it go gray. It could be the fresh water that this boat was exposed to more than the salt water that let that teak decay like that. It's too bad. We might scarf in a new piece there if we want to continue to use that trim. There were a few screws that were difficult to access because of their proximity to my walkway. They're at the top of the transom. So now I have gone ahead and raised up this walkway so it's more or less out of the way. I have a lot more room to work now, and that's working great. And with all of those screws removed, we are now down to just 2 pieces of hardware left here on the transom. So I'm wondering if these are screws or if they're through bolted. I kind of hope that they're through bolted, but they might be screws. So let's just try and drive them out and see if they just spin, then we need to be going inside. And if they do come all the way out and they're screws, well then that settles that. Before we get started here, I will place a quick wager with myself. I think this is gonna be just screws here. These look like they're gonna come right out. Now down here, these slotted fasteners, to me look like they're probably bolts. They probably go all the way through. We'll see. Well, that is interesting. We have some more machined threaded screws here, not wood screws, and so it's kind of like what we had for the exhaust outlet, except there I can see that there's no backing plates. Here there might be something inside. It's possible. We'll have to find out. I did tighten this back up with the impactor and it hits a hard stop. So I do believe there's something in there that's actually holding the threads, but this isn't long enough to have gone all the way through the hull. You can see here that this is just a little less depth than the whole thickness of the transom itself. So interesting. Well, we'll buzz these off. We'll find out more if we do go inside and take that headliner down, or the ceiling down. And with that, we have all of the hardware removed from the transom of the boat, and that feels great. So this is the part where I ask you to hit that like button for me. It really does help move the channel along. Let's get to 1 million subscribers, okay? We've got a little ways to go. Now, with that, let's head up into the boat and take a look at the interior. Welcome aboard the aft cabin of Antidote, and I am tempted to just dig right into that back transom wall behind you and get started on removing some of that trim and ply. Now, in the last video, there were a lot of comments, and by the way, I love getting all the comments from you guys, all the good, the bad, the encouragement, the naysaying. It's all good. Please keep those coming. I do read every one of them and try to answer to every single one that comes in. And we'll keep doing that as long as possible. In those comments, there were a lot of people advising to attack this problem from the outside. And I'm still weighing all of my options. I still think we'll dig in a little bit to some of this trim work here today because I do want to sort of expose a few things. I also have a lot of cables running up through here, wiring and whatnot, which I might want to address by dropping some of this headliner. We will see. I also thought it might be a good idea to get a core sample from down below where the exhaust outlets go, that would probably be the area where all the water would run down to. So that's probably the wettest portion of the plywood would be my guess. Anyway, let's fire up some music here and let's get to work and we'll see what we find. Well, as you can see here, the headliner is in kind of rough shape, and this hole is for an emergency tiller, and that might have been a source of some leaking. And it's really damaged the headliner here. And of course, this rear piece of ply goes in before the headliner, so you can see the gap there. So this would have to come down before getting this off, unless I cut it, which I could do. Well, let's carry on taking off a few more pieces of this trim, maybe this guy here and one of the window trim rings. Just trying to see if I can maybe get this piece of ply off and how it's sort of put together. Well, I'm not super excited at how well this is going because it's not going well. It's going very poorly. As you can see, I've broken a piece here, and although I think it came off pretty clean and I will be able to fix it if I choose to put this back in, yeah, it's not going well. Now, I did eventually put some of that marine debond here to try to soften the joints, and I've left it overnight now. So we'll give it a quick shot, see if it's coming out easier than before. I think the problem is it's glued on 3 faces and it's making it very difficult to remove. So hopefully that softens some of it up. We'll try it now. If it doesn't go, we're gonna try something else. Let's give it a shot. At first I thought that was moving a little bit more than last night. Now I'm not too sure. So whether or not that was working, inconclusive. It definitely softens the bonds a bit, but I'm not sure how far it can penetrate. There's a lot of adhesive here to take care of. So I think we're gonna go a different direction on that. But first, I think I'm gonna take a core sample here out of the transom. Down below, there is an area that I can access fairly easily. We can cut out the inner skin and we'll take the core. We won't try to touch the outer fiberglass layer. And then we can take a look at that plywood, what kind of condition it's in. So the skin's about 1/8 of an inch on the inside. So at 12:1, we need about 1.5 to 2 inches for the scarf joint. So I'll mark out an area here where I can safely cut, and then let's get a core sample removed. With that core sample removed, it did come out a little bit more intact than I anticipated. Some of these pieces are staying together quite a bit better. I would give it probably, it's maybe at like 50% strength if I just had to guess. It's definitely not like fresh plywood. It does come apart, but it's not as easy as I thought. So it has me thinking a little bit more about maybe trying to leave this, trying to dry it out, some alternative solution. And I'm sure that a lot of you watching would be really happy if I did that. But I still do want to take off at least this upper section. I think I'll try to keep going with that, take off this trim. But let's see if we can attack this window again, because if I can get this part off, I'd like to take a few more samples from this area of the transom to see if the results are similar there. I expect the water came in at the top, and so that's probably our worst spot. We're gonna try to remove those aft windows here from the exterior of the boat in a second, but first, while I'm back here, I noticed that my moisture meter now in that area where I've removed all of the core material using those little sanding discs is actually showing significantly lower, and you can see as I move this around that it actually does change the reading. So I think that's pretty interesting. Even when there was just a little bit of plywood scraps really on the inside, it was still showing full readings all the way across. So that kind of shows you how sensitive these meters are. Pretty interesting. All right, well, let's get going. Okay, well, moving that glass was not too bad, and now I have access to the side here of this wood trim piece, so I should be able to make the cuts, get that sealant removed, and push this thing through without any further damage. And that's probably the way to go with the other ones so that I don't damage them. Let's keep going. In the end, success, but now we have it removed in a few pieces, so I will have to clamp it back together, but the brakes are clean. I think I'll be able to get it back, and you'll probably never know. You'll know if you watch these videos, but if you don't know, you won't know. Does that make sense? I think it does. A quick word of caution about the marine debond. I think it does work to break down the polyurethane somewhat, but it also says on the can that it is not compatible with all plastics. And you can see here that this window, after soaking overnight, is looking like someone punched it. I was setting up my camera and I thought, what's wrong with that window? And well, it's starting to let go, and that's just from the marine debond, I must assume. So the other window is fine, but this one is looking a little rough. Anyway, these are all out of the boat anyway now, but just a word of caution for everyone out there using this stuff. So with this process kind of figured out and dialed in now, the second two trim rings remove quite a lot easier. We're working a little more efficiently, but it still is a ton of adhesive in there and glue. So when I go to put these back in, I'm going to go with something that is a really good sealant, but not necessarily an adhesive, because it's going to be clamped in on this side by the trim ring and on the other side by the stainless steel. So you really just need a sealant, not an adhesive. I assume that what we have here is like 5200, an adhesive, and that's why it's so difficult to remove. And I'll probably never need to touch them again after this, but on we go. Those last two came apart pretty easily. There is a little bit of breakage on one, but it looks like it was already like that. It was just kind of glued in place, so we'll fix that when we put it back on. And now I want to take this piece of plywood out, so this trim will come out and in we'll go. Now it does look like this ply is glued straight on to the laminate, to the back face. There's no like furring strips. That might be part of the reason for the moisture problems, because you'd get some condensation potentially forming on that. I'm not sure. At any rate, let's dig in and see what we've got. Well, maybe just a slight change of plans here. As I was getting ready to take out that piece of plywood up there, I had noticed that the core that I had first removed from the lower part of the transom was actually dried out quite a bit, as it had been sitting out here on the aft bed for about 2 days. And so it had me thinking, well, since that didn't separate, the layers were still somewhat intact in that sample, that maybe it's dry enough. So I think what I'll do first is take out a couple of core samples here from higher up on the plywood. And I'm doing this using a large hole saw to get through the plywood layer, and then a smaller hole saw to actually take the core sample. My thinking here is that if everything is fine, I'll be able to plug these cores with some Kusa, something like that, and I have enough room here to fair back in the fiberglass, leave it alone, and everything's fine. I can just fair over the old plywood with some like epoxy filler and sand the whole thing, paint it. Probably would never know I was ever in there. Now, as I've taken out a few of these samples, I am noticing that this ply is more of what I was fearing. So I'm getting that wet, mushy plywood. The layers have all separated. If you've seen my earlier video about different kinds of cores, and I kind of get into the technicality of why a core is so important and what its purpose is serving? Well, when you have the layers of plywood that aren't joined together, the core is essentially useless. So at some point from the top to the bottom of this transom, we go from okay but wet to not okay and very wet. So as you can see behind me, I've taken out 4 different core samples, and these are all wet, they're super saturated, mushy, and gotta go. So somewhere in here we're going to be replacing core material. Now, in the last video, a lot of people suggested that going from the outside would probably be easier versus the inside. It was probably 60% outside, 35% inside, and then maybe a few people were like, stop what you're doing. And now I see pros and cons on both sides. So if you're watching, we're gonna go one way or the other. There was actually some pretty cool ideas. Like one was to lay the glass up. It's a pretty thick piece of glass back here, as you now know, but to lay the glass up on the existing transom to get the shape and then cut it out. That's an interesting idea. Come around next time and find out how we're gonna tackle this problem. We're gonna get right into this. And so that'll be coming up in the next video. So if you are new to the channel and you want to get caught up from the very beginning, I'll put a playlist for you that'll pop up right over here. And of course, you can always subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Some alternative method. Wasn't me. I have an alibi. I was here. I was filming, and you guys all saw it.